Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. The Tennessee Vols heading into 2025 has been a topic of some heated arguments between us over the last couple of months. You are a Tennessee believer, and you really have been a believer over the last couple of months. I have my questions about this Tennessee football team going into 2025. Now, I want to be very clear. My questions about this Tennessee football team were much prior to the Nico situation. In fact, I think the Nico situation is being blown way out of proportion in terms of what he means to this football team going into the 2025 year. This is not me getting up here and saying Nico's a bad quarterback. The amount of times I have heard people say, well, we can't ignore that they're losing a quarterback that led them to a college football playoff. Those the reverse. Like, I thought this Tennessee football team dragged Nico to the college football playoffs last year. That's kind of how I saw it. Like, my concerns with this Tennessee team don't really have a lot to do with the quarterback play. I'm a Michigan fan. I saw what Josh Heupel did with Joe Milton in 2023. I know the true Joe Milton, and Josh Heupel works some damn wonders. My bigger concern, or my bigger question marks, you might want to say, is, you look at that Tennessee team from 2024, they did some things exceptionally well. Were elite on the defensive line, had a very, very good run game. My concerns are those aspects of this Tennessee team. Are they going to be something Tennessee can lean on as much as they did in 2024 in the 2025 season? How this conversation is going to go is that I'm going to ask my questions. You were going to sell me on this Tennessee football team, and I'm fired up to hear from the Tennessee fans as well. I want to start with this. To the Tennessee fans, I can't thank you guys enough. It has been very fun talking this football team over the last couple of months. The amount of support y'all have shown the fellas, it means the world. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it fly in the comment section too, because they're like, I want to buy in, man. Like, there was a point last year in 2024, I said Tennessee was the best team in all of college football. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. I do want to start with this. For as many question marks as I might have about this Tennessee team, there's one thing that kind of sticks in my head. How many coaches in the SEC do you trust over Josh Heupel? Like, when Nick Saban leaving Alabama, it's like, all right, Kirby Smart. I trust Kirby Smart just about as much as anybody in the country. Coach Sark at Texas is getting there. Outside of that, like, how many coaches, how many coaching staffs are we taking over what Tennessee has going into 2025? That's where it starts, because Josh Heupel has shown he can get it done in this conference on a consistent basis, and they've only been getting better as a program since Josh Heupel's been there.
And that's my issue with, like, not just you, but it feels like a lot of people, when the Nico news hit, that kind of put fuel on the fire. But I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, look how much Tennessee has to replace on both sides of the line of scrimmage. How are they going to do it? You kind of look where Heupel's gotten this program too.
Yeah.
That's not at, like, I mean, Georgia loses kids every year. When Nick Saban had Alabama rolling, they were losing guys every year. Ohio State, same thing. I'm not necessarily saying Tennessee's gotten to that point yet of those schools where they're just like, you kind of pencil them as championship contenders, but they're getting pretty close. So I look, these people saying like, oh, how are they going to replace guys? Like, Heupel's put together a culture at Tennessee that Tennessee hasn't had since probably going back to the Phil Fulmer days. So I look, that to me gives me a level of like a resting level of confidence. I would say that this, you shouldn't just count them out as like, oh, they're going to have like a 5 and 7 years or something.
All right. So, well, yeah, I think that's fair. Now, this is where you have to sell me. I'll state the quarterback position. One, I'm not sure if I think everyone's penciling in Joey Aguilar as like the starting quarterback for Tennessee in 2025. And I would probably say he's the leader in the clubhouse because he's the only quarterback in this room that's played significant football. But I think you got two young, talented quarterbacks that can certainly make it happen as well. Here's my pitch with Joey Aguilar and kind of why I'm not all that concerned. We know he has the arm to play in this Tennessee offense, especially with some of the wide splits. Joey Aguilar's problem is just decision-making. He is at times a lunatic with what he does with the football. Now, I kind of like it. He's a gunslinger. He's really fun to watch. But, man, we got to take care of the football a little bit better going into 2025. Well, here's the thing. Like, Josh Heupel's going to make it easy on a quarterback. Like, at least in my opinion, the big part of playing quarterback for Josh Heupel was making the throws. It's not necessarily going through the process, because Josh Heupel is going to do that for you with the
Because you're
scheme.
right, he took an element of like the chaos out of Joe Milton's game for sure. Like when you compare like Michigan Joe Milton to Josh Heupel Joe Milton, it was a different player. Now, still the accuracy was a problem, so that was like certainly an issue. I do
Yeah.
think Joey Aguilar, you said it, has the arm. He is a pretty accurate quarterback, assuming he is making good decisions. So it'll
Yes.
probably work out just fine. But I'm kind of with you. I think this idea that it's definitely his job. I think there's two really talented guys who,
Yes.
especially Merklinger. I mean, now he's been in the system for a little bit now. I wouldn't be stunned to see him trot out there as the day one starter.
Okay, run game. Run game is what you need to sell me on. And I'll say this, you don't need to sell me on the running backs. And this is not an anti-Dylan Sampson take. And I think I saw some comments that are like, I don't think Dylan Sampson's a good running back. I think Dylan Sampson's a great running back. I actually think it kind of benefits Tennessee from having a little bit more of a committee with how fast Tennessee wants to play and how many snaps and how many carries they're going to give, or spreading it out a little bit more, keeping your guys fresh. I think is going to help you win football games in the fourth quarter. You got to sell me on Peyton Lewis. I love Peyton Lewis coming out of high school. What you have to sell me on is this offensive line. Like, is this offensive line a unit that can run the football against some of the best teams in the country, specifically in the SEC? That's where my questions come into play with this Tennessee offense.
And that's where you got to have a level of trust in what Tennessee's been able to do. Because I think you go out and grab two like floor raisers in the
Plug and play
guys who you'd be really comfortable playing in
Agreed.
the SEC. But I think there's some guys like kind of waiting in the wings that people don't want to acknowledge. Like might be real, like Jesse Perry. Like go back and watch what he did at right tackle last year. I think he's a guy who I think one of the beat reporters for Tennessee kind of said they're comfortable playing him pretty much every position aside from maybe center. He does have some of that in his game. Now, I think David Sanders coming in sounds like he's kind of locked that right tackle spot up. So I look at Jesse Perry, a Bennett Warren before he kicks out to tackle later in his career. Could he factor in that one of the guard spots? Anderson and Umarov, I think, again, both really talented players. So that to me is where I get this like, okay, I know there's going to be new players. We all give Texas, it feels like, the benefit of the doubt that they're going to get it rolling. Tennessee's offensive line, like their development, their ability to kind of get those units right under Josh Heupel is probably what's changed the trajectory of this program. That to me is why I have more confidence than I feel like a lot of people do, just because like he's now done it for the past couple of years where they've put out really good offensive lines and they've supplemented in the portal, but they've also developed a lot of really good players.
And I'll say this, covering Tennessee in the summers on the recruiting trail, I do feel like we talk about it a lot. Like the amount of blue chippers that Tennessee lands on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I mean, you look at the two deep for Tennessee, it's not a ton of guys that have played a ton of football. But Dill, we're both Michigan fans, and we both like Bennett Warren. We were going after him. We were going after guys like Max Anderson, and Tennessee took it to Michigan on the trail. Like they've done a really good job recruiting blue chip line of scrimmage players that, maybe it's fair. Maybe I'm kind of falling into that trap of just getting so wrapped up in returning production that you kind of forget to say, hey, Tennessee's done a nice job developing, a nice job retaining, and they've recruited really well at this position. Here's the thing that kind of excites me is as much as I kind of frame myself as a Tennessee doubter to open up this episode, I'm kind of fired up about the wide receiver room. Now, it's a little bit of a thin wide receiver room, but the young talent excites me. And I think what you're looking for here is, can these young cats take that step going into year two? And what I mean by that is Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, and Dill. Can we get a little boot? Do we think we see a little Boo Carter on offense? Because I look at where Tennessee is on offense and say, all right, we probably don't have that Heisman level quarterback. I think that's fair to say right now. So we want to make sure we have difference makers around the quarterback position. I remember us, we had another guy that Michigan was going after in Tennessee, gives us the business on the trail. Boo Carter can play. Get the football to him in space, in his hands, and he's going to go out and make plays for you. What do you think about this wide receiver room going into 2025 here?
And that's the thing. Like, I think this is one of those units that, again, even they lost a lot from last year, but I'm not sure like that's devastating because
can it be upgrades?
There was an element of underperformance. I felt like
100% agree
for those older guys in that
100%.
wide out room. So this is a big one. Like Staley and Mike Matthews, I think it really comes down to those two.
Yeah,
kind of living up to their billing, if you will. I mean, big time recruits obviously coming out. The Boo Carter question, I think, comes down to how ready Radarius Jackson and Travis Smith are. Because my
Okay.
issue with having Boo Carter play a ton of offense, or even any offense, let's say, is they pretty much are going to need to have him take every snap on the defense. Because, like, I don't really know where else you're going, and get into it later, but it's really thin in the safety spots. So, like, I almost think if Jordan Thomas, you feel really good about him playing, you probably should kick back to that safety spot and be there, because it's just a thin room. I don't know that you can take Boo Carter off the field on defense. He's
Yeah.
too good, and you're too thin there probably. And you have enough talent in the wide receiver room, in my opinion, to make it work.
Well, it's like, so I don't need and I see where you're coming from because you're thin in the secondary. But like, can it just be like 10 snaps a game, a couple like design packages? Because he might be the most electric football player on this team with the football in his hands. Now, we haven't seen it a ton at the collegiate level yet, but you go back to his tape out of high school, this kid, he's special with the football in his hands. All right, the big selling point here is the defensive line. Again, you talk about like us giving way too much. I shouldn't say that. I don't want to attack Nico, but like, we talk so much about Nico leading Tennessee to the playoffs. Like, it was the defense. It was specifically the defensive line. They were top 5 against their run. They were elite in the pass rush. They had a top 10 defense in the country in 2024. I think a large part of that had to do with the defensive line. You lose some absolute dudes. And my biggest concern here is not necessarily the top end talent, although I am concerned about losing guys like James Pierce. My concern is how deep this Tennessee team can be. Because when you're Tennessee on offense and you want to play as fast as you want to play, well, your defense is going to have to play a lot too. And you want to make sure your defensive bodies are fresh throughout 4 quarters. I like the top end talents there. Like, Joshua Josephs might be one of the better edge rushers in the country going into 2025. Are we deep enough in this Tennessee defense to really make it happen like we did
No
last year?
question about the edge room. I think the edge room is going to be like
Yes.
awesome. And again, I know you lose James Pierce, who is really good, but you still have top end talent. You've recruited the position. You got 2 young guys coming up with Caleb Herring, Jordan Ross. Dominic Bailey and Tyler West have played a lot of football and have been
Yes.
really productive players. It's obviously coming down to their defensive tackle depth. And that's just, I feel like we're saying this about a lot of really good teams because it's just hard to be as deep as you want to be in that room. I think you feel really good about 3 guys. Hobbs, Eason, Jackson Loy,
Yep.
all coming back, played a fair amount. Devin Hobbs is going to need to step up and be like a dog this year, I think, and be really productive. And you've seen some flashes from him for sure, but he's probably going to need to give you something like what Amari Thomas was giving you in that type of level where it's just game in and game out being really, really disruptive and pretty dominant. And then Isaiah Campbell's probably the guy you're looking at to fill that 4th spot of being really consistent. Because I know you've got some guys like Josh Sell, Nathan Robinson, you probably throw Jamal Wallace in that too. I'm not sure you have a ton of belief in those guys being high impact SEC players.
Okay.
Isaiah Campbell is going to be a huge, huge piece, I think, if this team kind of reaches that ceiling and they're, again, competing again for an SEC title.
Lot of teams relying on some young cats in the middle of the defensive line this year. And I think what it's coming down to is it's harder for these premier programs like Tennessee to hold on to your guys in the 3 deep and hold on to them for multiple years because they're good enough to go and play at other programs. And so you're seeing a lot of high-end Power 4 programs kind of have question marks about the depth in the defensive line. Linebacker room, to me, can you get a jump? Can you just get a little player development is probably the question. I'll say going to the secondary, Dill, I thought that Colton Hood addition was massive. I think he's a chess piece. You were painfully thin in the secondary prior to Colton Hood coming in. You're probably still thinner than you want to be. Can play boundary cornerback, can play nickel. I think could play safety. I think could be a pretty dang good safety as well. Kind of interested to see how they use him. Give me your takes on this.
I'm gonna put one to the Tennessee fans. I'd be really interested in hearing from them. Jordan Thomas, I feel like we've kind of forgot about because obviously got hurt before the season last year. I think a lot of people, including myself, were really excited about what he could be. And then Boo Carter played at such a level where I think some people forgot that Jordan Thomas kind of exists.
Okay.
He's a guy I really would be interested to see if they kick him back to safety and let him work there because you can just tell, like, even just the guys we're looking at right now, like, is Edris Farouk going to take a step and be a more of a difference maker? Andre Turrentine's probably been there long enough where I don't think you're going to get elite play from him at this point in
Well,
his
I thought
career.
you saw it. Sorry to cut you off in the playoff game against Ohio State. Like that's where Tennessee was really let down. And the back end, specifically at the safeties, they same thing with Oregon. Like, it's not like the safety position was really bad for Tennessee last year, but when you went up against those elite teams that you have to beat to compete at the highest level of the sport, they didn't have the juice to go run with a guy like Jeremiah Smith. You kind of thinking some of the young guys or a guy like Jordan Thomas might be the answer at those positions.
And that's what I'm wondering, because, like, again, assuming Jermod McCoy gets back, and I don't really have any reason to think he won't. Maybe it won't be like the first week of the season he'll be playing all SEC level,
Yeah, we
but
need
I
him.
assume he's going to get back and make it happen. You got two really good boundary corners with him and Ricky Gibson. Got an elite slot guy in Book, or nickel, I should say, in Boo Carter. I think if you can just get, to me, Jordan Thomas is the answer in the back end. I think just seeing what you saw from him going back to the 2023 year, was athletic enough to play, I would have been really comfortable with him playing that star spot for Tennessee. I think he's kind of the answer for me. Because again, you don't really love, I don't think, what you have. And I know they kicked Caleb Beasley back. I don't know that you really want to go into the year counting on him a ton to be a dominant safety. Jordan Thomas, if they get really good play from him, I think he's got the athleticism, the talent to be a really good safety.
It kind of comes down to just trying to get your best five on the football field. And I look at Jordan Thomas and Colton Hood coming from Rado and saying they're probably part of your top five, or at least top six, top seven.
You can't bury them behind a Boo Carter or Jermod McCoy, Ricky Gibson, because they're too good players.
Probably got to
get like that.
Probably got to get them on the football field. All right. I mean,
to wrap that up, I'm not sure I'm picking Tennessee as a favorite to win the SEC right now, but I do think this year is kind of a program defining year. I don't know that they're going to go walk into a team like Georgia or LSU or Florida, like the teams that maybe you look at and think are kind of the favorites right now, and just not have a chance. I think they're going to play those games. I think they're going to be really tough. I think they're going to win their share of those games. And it really does come down to what you kind of said at the front. Josh Heupel, I think, has built this Tennessee program up to where I just don't think you're going to see those monster dips where they go down and just, they play like a Kentucky or something. I just don't think you'll ever see that with Tennessee in the Heupel era, because he's done a really good job of building a really sustainable program in my mind.
You go on and win 9 football games. I think the Tennessee fans are especially with kind of what just unraveled there.
Excellent year.
Not only an excellent year, but you ask me what programs I'm buying stock in post 2025. I'm buying all the stock I can with Tennessee. Again, I think it's college football playoff expectations every single year for Tennessee. That's where Josh Heupel's got that program. Even if you miss and you go win 9 football games, if you're a Tennessee fan, you have to be fired up about where this program is going under Josh Heupel. All right. Hey, it honestly kind of worked. I ain't going to lie to you. I didn't think it'd work, but it kind of worked a little bit. Tennessee fans, appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.